Turnkey with Morgan Francis, sponsored by Integrity Roofing.
Welcome to Turnkey on Queen City News Plus, your go-to show for everything real estate in the Carolinas. We dive into the latest market trends, do's and don'ts of the industry, and provide expert advice on navigating this dynamic landscape that we call home. I'm your host, Morgan Francis, and today we're going to talk about renting versus owning, property management, and if you do want to become a landlord someday, how you go about doing that. And to help us break down those topics, we're going to bring in Shelly Henderson, owner of Henderson Properties here in Charlotte.
Hi, Morgan.
Appreciate you coming on.
I'm always willing. This is wonderful.
So tell me a little, you're based in Charlotte.
Yes, correct.
Local company. You guys have the kind of unique space that you do both the rental side as well as the property management side and home buying and selling. You kind of do it all, right?
We do, as well as renovations and maintenance. So we are a full service real estate firm, if you will. And with that, just offers kind of a one-stop shop to help everybody. We call it farm. Find, acquire, renovate, and manage your property.
So why is it that not a lot of companies do all of that? It sounds like a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot. And we originally, my husband and I started Henderson Properties as a hobby back in the late 90s. And we started out as property management. But with that, we evolved into other divisions of our company and felt like there was a need, instead of trying to find somebody to do the plumbing work. For an example, we now have an in-house plumber. Instead of referring someone to a realtor, we now have our own small boutique sales team. So, with that, over the years, we've just evolved into a one-stop shop. And I think that it requires time and patience, and a lot of other companies might not have the time or be willing to invest in those other divisions. And that's fine too.
Well, and the buck stops with you, right? I mean, it's nice to have your list of preferred vendors, but at the end of the day, if they're all underneath your roof, you're responsible for getting the job done, whatever it may be.
Yes.
So we've talked a lot on our show about the home ownership side of things, but I would love to talk about the rental market because so many people do rent out there, and that's essentially where you start. No one moves out of mom and dad's home and straight into a house of their own.
Exactly.
If you have done that, congratulations.
Yes,
You're miles ahead of everyone else. But let's take a look at since you kind of specialize in both, the rental market. Where is it now in terms of what people are paying for rent? Do renters have leeway for negotiating? What does the market look like? What's the pulse right now?
Well, let's start from when we first started our business. Back in the day, 25, 30 years ago, being a renter was maybe looked down upon. Oh, you couldn't afford to buy a house, so you're renting. But now, fast forward 25 years, I mean, it is a real thing. And renting is a beautiful thing for a lot of different reasons. Somebody may not be ready to commit to purchasing a home. They may not think that they're going to be here for very long. Remember Charlotte, when I refer to the past, was a lot of charlatans, and I'm one of the few that have been here for most of my life.
You're the unicorn that everyone talks about.
I'm the unicorn. And I love to talk about this sort of thing because it is so important to say we love renters, we love first-time home buyers, we love investors. And, there is something for everybody. And I have experience. You and I were talking. I have 2 boys. And so I've been through this process where my oldest son was a renter in an apartment, and now he is a home owner. And, it does give somebody an opportunity to start off and have that independence and feel secure that they can do it. So they have the confidence to, okay, what's the next step? And maybe, for those people that are empty nesters or they're single or they just don't want to do yard work or, whatever, renting is a great thing.
whether it be a condo, a townhome, or a single family
Yes.
home, there is a responsibility there. And
Right.
at the end of the day, I can see the perspective of someone who's like, you know what? I'm okay paying rent and not having
Right.
the equity and just realizing that if something breaks, I don't have to fix it. I don't have to pour all this money into this place if something goes wrong. I respect that viewpoint for sure. So let's talk about the lease aspect of it because and lease, not the least, the
Yes.
lease aspect of it, because a lot of times I think renters always feel like, okay, rent is always going up,
Mhm.
and by a lot sometimes. What
Mhm.
are you seeing for the average increase of rent?
Mhm.
And is there ever wiggle room for the renter to negotiate that back down, maybe from, let's say, like 5% to 2 or 3%?
Well, let me start by saying that for the real estate process for a renter and a landlord, it is like full circle. So you have the investor who owns the property, you have the landlord, the management company like us, like Henderson Properties,
Mm-hmm.
who manages said property, whether it's a condo or a house. And then you have the resident who's going to live in the property. So it's really threefold, if you will. And there's a lot of different aspects that I think the general public may not know. There's the rental um, market in Charlotte, and we try to stay within that. And for a rental property, that is typically right now lower than a mortgage. So the rental rate in Charlotte for, say, a 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom
Mm-hmm.
apartment in Charlotte is $1,500 to $1,700. And right now, I would say our portfolio at any given time, we manage up to about 800 properties, rental properties, and those are condos, homes, commercial, whatever,
Okay.
whole gamut. So I think our average is more like $1,700, $1,800. And then a mortgage in this day and time is usually over that.
Mm.
You're looking at $2,000 ish for a mortgage. So with that said, perhaps the new resident does have a little wiggle room. And in my experience, especially if you're dealing with a smaller firm, not the big box corporate landlord, if you will,
Mhm.
but more local, small company like Henderson Properties, it doesn't hurt to ask,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because
All right.
what's the worst thing? We say no based on what we can do and what the said owner, investor is willing to do. So there's an application fee that's involved. There's also the monthly rent. And with that comes a security deposit before somebody can move in after they're approved.
The security deposit, is there a limit on how much that can be?
You know what? I personally don't know if there's a limit,
Okay.
but we charge the same as the rent. So
Okay.
if your rent
The rent
is
or-
$1,800, your security deposit is going to be
Okay.
$1,800.
Okay. And that's pretty
Yes.
standard, I would
Yes,
think.
I think that's standard.
So
yes.
can someone say, what about someone who's renewing their lease? Is there any, obviously they're not doing the application fee, right?
Correct.
So they don't have to reapply.
Correct.
Is there anything else that they could ask as a concession, let's say?
Well, they probably could. For us, it makes so much sense and makes our job easier as the management company
Mhm.
to have somebody renew their lease, right? Because
None of them trashing it when they're moving out or
Yes.
someone else moving in.
and then you have to, clean the carpet and
Mhm.
repaint. And we call that a make ready to get it all ready and buttoned up for the next new tenant. So I would say they could ask, same thing. Maybe their rent doesn't go up for the next 12-month lease. For us, we only do 12-month leases.
Mhm.
We don't do anything less. So like I said, it doesn't hurt to ask because it depends. There are some investors, owners
Mhm.
that are more lenient. And, if we came to them and said, we have a tenant that is going to renew their lease, and what would you say about instead of increasing their rent by $50 a month, we only do it $25.
Okay.
You never
Win-win.
know.
It's a win-win because it still goes up a little bit. You know, you're covering expenses and, you know, the renter's happy. Hopefully.
And again, you know, I want people to understand that as a management company, we are not the bad guy. We're just the middleman. And we want everybody to be happy.
Right.
We want everybody to be, you know, invested and think of it as a success story.
So don't shoot the messenger. Is what
Don't shoot the messenger, please. No, I know. And that happens very frequently.
Oh, I'm sure there are some interesting phone calls.
Yes.
Which we'll get into that later on the show. We've talked a little bit about the rental side. We have to take a quick commercial break.
Sure.
But when we come back, I want to talk about the management side of it, property management, what it is like being a landlord, and what are some of the do's and don'ts. Guess what? Shelly's going to help us with that. More Turnkey after this. Welcome back to Turnkey on Queen City News Plus. We are talking about renting versus owning today. A little bit of property management mixed in there. Shelly Henderson with Henderson Properties has been helping to educate and better arm the renter so that they can understand what they should and shouldn't know when it comes to renting a property. But Shelly, you're on the property management side as well as the home buying and selling side. If someone is a renter and they're thinking about purchasing a home and they're waffling between whether or not they should wait or jump right in now, what are you seeing on your end of things since you guys handle both the renter and the home buying and selling side? What are you seeing in terms of the state of the market and whether or not that's a good decision for a renter to make that jump?
Okay, Morgan, I'm going to say something that some people might not agree with.
Let's
but
do it.
I have lived it. I have done it. I have my own set of rental properties that I have. There's never a bad time to buy a house.
Okay.
There's just not. There's some times that are better. Right now, the trend is we're kind of ticking upwards towards a buyer's market. So that means typically there's more inventory, so the home prices are going lower. Okay, so that's a good thing. Interest rates are what they are, and people should not get bogged down on the interest rate. The great Dave Ramsey has said, date the rate,
yes,
marry the house.
Yes. Yep.
I'm sure you've heard that.
Yep.
Okay, so if people will just take that off the table, don't worry about the interest rate right now. If they really want to buy a house, what should they do? And let's start with a first-time home buyer.
Okay.
All right? Whether they are 25 years old or 50 years old, here is the secret sauce. That's not really a secret. It's just common sense. Stop spending money where you don't need to.
Well, I feel like there's like a Starbucks coffee somewhere.
No, because you know what? One Starbucks coffee at $5, you know, if you do that every day,
it adds up. And we're not calling out Starbucks, but it's always the easy example.
We could say the same thing with online shopping and, you know, going out.
Amazon packages.
Exactly.
One drink when you're out with friends.
I was just going to say.
It's hard to say no. It is so hard to say no. And I was talking about this with our news director the other day. You go on Instagram and you see that everybody else is going on a European vacation and they're taking all these pictures and they're having the time of their lives. You don't know their financial situation. They could be throwing it on the credit card too, which I think a lot of people probably are. And it just, again, it goes back to the priorities of what do you really want to do? Do you want to own a house or do you want to continue to add on to the debt and then push that down the road even further?
Exactly. And I love to educate people. I love real estate. There's, you know, people are happy when they get the key, right? And they sign the paper. And then
big smiles.
They're not so happy later, maybe when they need a repair. But with that said, real estate builds your wealth. And with the real estate market, whether you are an investor, a first-time home buyer, or, you know, you're buying a second home, whatever it is, we typically have seen, my husband and I included, an uptick of appreciation of up to 10% per year. You're not going to get that in the stock market every year. You know, the stock market's going to ebb and flow.
Right.
We're all for diversifying our financial portfolios. But real estate, and I've been an investor for pretty much going on 30 years, it's just been a steady incline. And what a way to have a retirement all there if you start when you're young.
Mm-hmm.
It's never too late, but the younger you are, the better for the real estate. So with that said, what does somebody have to do? They have to commit to not spending frivolously,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to be willing to sacrifice some things.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, sometimes I think people say, I'm not going to, before that happens, people say, I'm not going to do it. I don't know how. I don't know what to do first. So get a plan. Find a team that can help you. That's a realtor. That's a mortgage lender.
Mm-hmm.
Because the mortgage lender...
You have to know your budget.
You have to know your budget. And the mortgage lender is going to say, yeah, I know you like that house. That's $600,000, but you only qualify for $280,000.
That's maybe the second house. That's,
Exactly.
And I think that goes back to what you're talking about rent versus your mortgage payment.
Yes.
Is where the rates are now. The rates are the rates, and
Right.
and if that means that you can't get that, maybe you would have previously been approved for a $400,000 house, and now it's $300,000 or whatever the example be.
It's okay.
At least you're getting your foot in the door.
You're getting your foot in the door. That's a great point. And then other people have said, well, what if I'm not going to stay here very long? That's okay. If you're not here in 2 years, be a good rental property, right?
Mm-hmm.
After 2 years.
This is a great transition because I wanted to talk about property management and what it means to be a landlord.
Sure.
You've, I'm sure, seen everything happen in your years of experience.
We've seen a lot.
So what is landlording 101? What do people need to know if they're thinking about changing that primary residence into a rental property?
If they're thinking about doing that, the one thing that will set them up for success, other than not doing it themselves, is you have to let go of the emotional ties.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, it's kind of like sending your baby to kindergarten. It's okay. It's still your house, but now somebody else is going to make it their home.
The baby and going to kindergarten is going to look great. When it comes back,
Yes.
They're going to look like a hot mess.
That's right. And it's okay. We can clean the carpet. We can paint the walls. Things are going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Just know that. The other thing is, again, it's all about the team. For us, the management part of it, we love to take care of our owners because it makes their job easier. And today with, unfortunately, the way some people are, the way the laws are today, you do have to have people that know what they're doing.
So does a property management company such as yours handle if there's a bad renter and let's say they're paying their rent, and so you can't kick them out that way.
No.
But does the property management company handle that when it might be a situation that it's got to go to the courts? How does someone deal with that?
Yep, they should. And for my team, we have policies and procedures that we follow. There are practices that we have made better through the years. And again, it's all about the team. So I have a team of resident services specialists that take care of that.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody doesn't pay their rent, they send the late notice. If the late notice is not paid, then they file the eviction and they actually go down to court and, in person if need be. And you have to go through the proper channels. And you can't just evict somebody by word of mouth.
And you can't just show up.
No.
Because there are rules about that, too. You need, 24-hour notice?
Yes, it's their house. So before an inspection is done, which a property management or a landlord should do, we do that twice a year. And, you give them a 24-hour notice, and then you can enter the property after you've notified them.
You've laid out a lot of great stories and pictures of what it means to be a landlord, but I want to hear the bad stuff. I want to hear the tenant horror stories. Think about it.
My goodness.
Think about it.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick commercial break,
good.
and when we come back, it's going to be good. More Turnkey after this. Welcome back to Turnkey on Queen City News Plus. We've been talking with Shelly Henderson with Henderson Properties, where you guys do pretty much all of it, the whole span of real estate. But we hinted at this before commercial break, is the tenant nightmare stories, the expectation versus the reality. What are some of the situations you've had to deal with in the past?
Morgan, if you can think it in your head, we've probably had to deal with it. I mean, and listen, we're not perfect. I want to say that right off the bat. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
But stories like people not reading their email, not answering their phone, or their voicemail is full and you can't get back in touch with them. There's one story that comes to mind, and it had to do with a property manager, and we gave a 24-hour notice that we were coming to do a 6-month inspection, which we do, and said tenant did not read the email. So they had a dog, and we asked that the dog or the pets are put up for good reason,
right?
Such as what happened at this situation. So property manager goes to the door, knocks. Nobody says anything, so they are allowed to enter. Dog comes running out, and dog goes right out the door because property manager was not expecting the dog to be loose in the house. The mailman is coming at the same time, walking up to the door to get the mail.
Comic sketch.
Oh my gosh, it was so funny. So the dog is getting pepper sprayed by the postal worker, which that wasn't funny. But then the tenant is pulling up in the driveway and sees the whole thing go down. So that was like a comedy of errors and a perfect case of, if you had read your email and knew we were coming, then,
Did one of your employees say, well, per my previous email?
Yes. Yes. And of course, that particular tenant was great. And, it's okay. But it was.
Oh, well, that's good. Because, sometimes
yes.
that's accompanied with someone who's just not understanding. And
right.
It's
right.
I think people are very quick to anger these days.
Yes.
And I could imagine that you deal with a lot of that too.
We do. And you know what? And that's the thing. I wish people would just let's just take a moment and pause. For an example, when something goes wrong at a property, we understand that you want it fixed immediately, and we do our best to do that. However, that person might not understand that when they call our maintenance department, they might be number 10 for the day. So we might not get you today. It might be tomorrow. Sometimes things happen where we have to order parts. We have to, go purchase things. We have to prioritize.
I mean, if there's a water leak at one property and someone else is dealing with a couple of cockroaches, guess who's going to take precedence?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's when people get angered because their perception is not necessarily reality. And then you try to explain, and some of the time it doesn't go well. And then they, result to social media or giving us a negative Google review. And it's like, okay, what is happening? We're just,
what did we do?
What did we do? And like I said, we're not perfect, but things happen. But still, when you are dealing with that many situations, and whether it's summertime and it's 100 degrees and people's air conditioning units,
I would imagine you get a lot of that.
Right. And with that said, it's important to have an emergency maintenance response team, which we have. So if it's a true emergency, sometimes people, that's another thing. Let's educate somebody on a true emergency. A roach problem is not an emergency. We might think it is, but it's not.
I will say, probably shouldn't say this, but
say it.
I lived in Texas, and everything's bigger in Texas. When I was renting there was a very large cockroach, and I'm like, I don't do this. I moved from New York, where the large items that we have are rats on the subway.
That's an emergency.
I called maintenance and I was like, I know this isn't what you guys typically take care of, but I can see it. It's under the fridge. I've got it cornered. I need help. And God bless, the guy came over and helped me out.
See, that's
so I was a tenant probably that I
nice.
dealt with in the past.
That's nice. Well, and you were nice about it.
Now I have a home and I have to deal with them on my own.
See, now that is something about the home ownership. You got to deal with it on your own.
Yep.
But so that's the thing. We understand people's frustration, and to them, it is a big deal. And so we try to act and do what we can do. But at the end of the day, we have to prioritize. People have to understand that their emergency is not is not everybody's emergency, so to speak.
Well, Shelley, you've been a delight.
Thanks, Morgan.
Thank you so much for coming on Turnkey and helping us to dive into the rental aspect of it specifically, because I don't think we've covered that yet. So it was really informational, and I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
And to everyone else out there, thank you so much for watching Turnkey on Queen City News Plus. We'll see you next time.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.